Today I'm just going to give you a rundown or a bit of an insight into shipping, that why shipping lines do things, why the industry does things, from the aspect of internationally, also from what we do nationally, and also from a point of view of a current port user into Townsville. So we'll just get on with the global. I've already skipped that, that's how quick I am. The current shipping global conditions have been occurring since, for the last 3 or 4 years, and will continue into the next 2 or 3. But most of the trade lanes are over tonnaged. By that I mean there is too much space on the ships, not enough cargo to fill them. So it's supply and demand means that the freight rates go down because there's an oversupply of tonnage. There's been poor global planning, which I've said has resulted into lower freight rates. A lot of carriers are in huge debt. Some are making or losing money. Others are going broke. And others have been merging. So, for example, there's in the last, since the GFC, the top 20 lines are now only 11, and within the next 6 months there'll be 7. So there's been a big shake-up in the industry over the last 10 years, and we expect that will continue. This shipping trend focus, just to give you an idea, I don't know whether, but forgot about that. The likes of, just to give you an idea, China Shipping and COSCO Shipping have merged. The 3 Japanese lines, which are MOL, MYK, COSCO, they're going into a joint venture next year. Hanjin went into receivership last year. UASC and Hapag-Lloyd have merged. APL have got under CMA. So a lot of those things are just initials of the major lines that traffic the world. But you can see as an example of those, the comment I made before about the top 20 lines 10 years ago, it's changed dramatically since then. This is just a very generic slide, but the bottom line is the most important. You'll see where the 1200 at the top, then 2.6, 4,000 and 6,500. They are the TEU size of ships. Then if you go down to the bottom, and this is the main reason, or one of the main reasons that the shipping lines are improving or building bigger ships, is you can see their profit margin right on the very bottom for a 1200 TEU ship, going from sort of 1% up to a 6,500 TEU ship at 25% profit margin, which is very, very generic, and that is not really accurate. But the point is, it's giving you a trend, and that's part of the reason ships are becoming larger. Future trends will be bigger ships. They'll be generally longer, most definitely wider. The reason for these bigger ships, besides that previous slide in improving profitability, is that the new ships will become more eco-friendly, built more eco-friendly. They will have less CO2 emissions. To give you an idea, it's rather surprising, but a ship can be a massive thing, but compared to, say, a truck or a train. But the actual CO2 emissions, you can see there, are quite dramatically different, from 170 to 180 grams per tonne per kilometre for articulated trucks, which are basically double B, triple Bs. For rail, 18, and ships around 12. That is the ship of the year built last year, or completed last year. They usually take a couple of years to build. That has solar panels on the roof. It has what they call a scrubber that reduces or eliminates the sulphur burn of fuel. It's got a mountain of other things that I don't understand and won't go into today, but I can get you, anyone who's interested, some information on that has a side view or a 3D picture of it with everything inside it, not including cars. It's a car carrier, that one. Now, that's the trends of global shipping. So at the start of this slide, I basically said I would show you a little bit of an overview on what was happening globally, then on what's going to happen nationally. It's a very short slide, this one. It's the role of SAL. A lot of you might not have heard of SAL, but because international shipping lines, well, Australia does not really have its own shipping industry. It's very small, very limited and reduced. I don't want to go into the reasons for and why, but generally speaking, it's not profitable. So therefore, being an island nation, we have to be serviced by shipping lines, and they're all owned internationally. Because every country they go to all have different rules, regulations, laws, and regulatory things they have to abide by. They employ people in each country. And here it's Shipping Australia Limited, such a long word, SAL. So each international shipping line contribute to SAL, so they, and their main reason for living is, as I said, basically to look after their international lines with, they discuss and work out what legal ramifications are with government, local authorities, local ports, even local councils. They deal with all the state governments, and in this state you have, in each state you have a secretary that reports to our head office. Then in each state they also have a voluntary chairman, which I am in this state. That's a voluntary role, and it's also a role that's only meant to be for 2 years, and they select someone from a different line every 2 years. The only problem is I'm a slow learner, and this is my 4th year, so I don't know how long it's going to take. So that's the second part of the talk today. So you've seen the global side and the trends and why they're going into bigger ships, and you've also I've also tried to give you an understanding of what representation is here and why it's here for. The third part is, oh no, sorry, I will give you, got those ones around a bit. The big focus we have here is particularly on in the port expansion, is particularly the channel widening. The main reason they can't with the focus on the increased size of ships, length, some in length, some in beam, the majority in beam, the larger they get, most definitely the wider they get. This gives you an idea on other ports around the country. Their channel widths, their depths. Depths can be is a very variable thing due to tides, but the channel width is generally stagnant, and the vessel access you've got there, and ships with, like for example, Townsville has a 32 metre beam, so that means the beam, or how wide the ship is. Anything over 32 metres wide as a ship can't go into that channel with any safety. So that just gives you an idea on some of the other ports. Gladstone has a 300 metre LOA, is pretty well generic term used for length overall of the ship. But it gives you an idea on the major ports: Brisbane, Melbourne. Some of the smaller ports can take pretty well bigger ships than Townsville can. This is a bit of a generic one too, but it's compound, CAGR is basically compound annual growth rate. What the slide is basically saying in the trends that are happening within this, within our industry over the last few years is that there's not enough cargo, which is sort of the flat line, and then the increased size of vessels going up sharply. That's a distinct reflection of going straight into the smaller ships. As we saw in that previous slide a few slides back, the profit margins were so low that the shipping lines had to do something to get around it. The idea of bigger ships, fewer ships, longer time in berth. So where you might have 100 ships come into a port, as the ships get bigger, they'll actually come in fewer times because they'll have more cargo on board to load and discharge. This is where Townsville stands at the moment. It's pretty self-explanatory, but Townsville is actually stuck in a rut as it looks. If we can only take 5% of the Australian container trade into this port, when it's going to be a growth region of the future, it will cause some problems in distribution, road maintenance and the like. This is another one that was mentioned earlier about the ship sizes. When I started in this industry a couple of years ago, ships were about 1,000 to 1,200 TEU ships. A TEU is a 20-foot equivalent unit. So, sorry, I should have explained that earlier. It's jargon for a 20-foot by 8 by 8 container. And generally speaking, you can get a 20-foot and a 40-foot. But we all talk in the industry, including the port, in TEU. You can see over the years, when I started, they were about 1,000, 1,200. They're now around the 5,000 mark. I would think over the next 20 years they'll progress in this country to about the 8,000 mark. Outside of that, I don't think we have the population or the cargo to support it for many, many years to come. But 8,000 TEU ships is, there's no way knowing that a port like Townsville at this stage can take it through the channel. You'll hear these mega ships built that are 20 and 22,000 TEU. Those ships will, I won't say never, but they will be more lateral. They will go around sort of the Europe, Singapore, Hong Kong, China, States. They'll go sort of more laterally. The smaller ships will feed north-south. doesn't work.
Yeah. Explain beam as well. Yeah.
Pardon?
Explain beam. Beam of ship.
Oh, beam is the width. So if you've got a 32 metre wide channel, sorry, the channel is actually wider than 32 metres. It doesn't just sort of go like a pool. The channel goes like that. So the optimum width of a port, or sorry, a channel, is how safely a ship can actually get into that channel. Basically, in a way, you're saying you can't just say it's going to stay the same in the middle, because all channels vary in depths. So, excuse the waves, but it's if you've got the basic theory is it's like that, and the deepest part is the centre in theory, and therefore, if that area is only about say 40 metres, safely. The harbour master will only allow ships of a maximum for, say, Townsville, 32 metre ships. Sorry, better get going. No, I can't get that to work.
Maybe point towards this.
You're marvellous. How people get around this situation, or other ports. Brisbane moved from Hamilton to Fisherman Island. That was and then they used reclaimed land. Probably a smart move because the ships wouldn't have been able to get under Gateway Bridge. And you've also got Port Jackson, although it's still a working harbour, it's nothing like it used to be, and they've made Port Botany whoops. Yeah, yes please. Oh no, that's right. Unfortunately, Townsville, we don't have another bay or port to go to, so I'll have to speed this up. Oh, yeah. This is my third hat. We're a current user, or Kaline is so I'll take the SAL side and the global side away. My company, Kaline, currently use the Port of Townsville for car carrying ships. But not only are we there for car carrying ships, we employ not only crew, which are generally foreign, but we have pilots. We employ pilots, tugs, stevedores, even port personnel, road and trucking companies to bring the vehicles in, and also to a PDI facility, which is a pre-distribution inspection, so that if you were buying a car, it comes into port, it goes through to PDI inspection facility, they take all the protection stuff off it, pretty it up and say to you, your car's ready, and take it to the dealer. So there's a lot of other things that we employ. To give you an example, the ship on the left is the very first car carrier ship on the top left, sorry. I'll have to speed up, but that used to bring cars. They'd bring them over and put them load them into a ship. When the ship got to say, in Australian waters, they'd take all the cars off and then they'd take grain back in them, say to Japan. See the one on the bottom left? That's the current one that comes into, one of the current ones that comes into Townsville. It was built in 2004 and is now obsolete. The one on the right, down the bottom, that's the one we want to bring in. Unfortunately, it's too wide. This is the conclusion we get if we can't get into the port. We have to omit the port. Therefore, we would go to somewhere like Brisbane. This is a bit tiny, but I'll try and be quick with this. The effects that'll have if we have to bypass, we can't put it on rail because rail won't take vehicles or can't take vehicles. So it has to go by road. On an average, 5 to 6 vehicles per truck means at 16,000 TEU per annum, 16,000 vehicles per annum, into this region means that you put about 3,000 odd extra trucks on the road, up, and 3,000 back. So, as I mentioned, the carbon emissions before, that's massive road maintenance. There's more safety issues with so much more traffic on the road. We also have, just to finish, we have, as I mentioned, everyone involved, but in the shipping industry, it's commonly known that for every one person employed in the bulk industry, there are 5 in the pure car carrying industry, and in the liner or container side, there are 7. So if you get 60 or 70 car carrying ships coming into this port every year, and multiply that by 5, will be the effect on employment in this port and this city and in this region, and to some effect on this island. I'll leave you with...
I think that's time, Geoff. We'll
Yep.
ask questions.
Yep. Just wanted to flick that to the last slide. Yeah, it's got any questions, but we'll ask them later. That's the current ship that was built last year, and this is the future with LNG powered vessel. They're looking at that over the next 10 years.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much, Geoff.